songs. Give me $1 to make it holla. Acapella on the block. I'm the one that get it hot. Run up on your spot like I hope you not talking that bullshit. You better believe I'm smoother than some Cool Whip. That's how we do it, too big. These $1 million pros ain't got no flows like this here starving student. Is it for the money or the music? Don't get it confused with that stagnant shit. My flow fluid. Guess what? You need to keep up, you dumb fuck. Word up, my beat swing like Bruce Lee's nunchucks. So oops upside your head, million principle. It's Eric Ozzy representing Grand Invincible.
Welcome. Hey, we are back. Meaningful Times with Friends, episode 31. Great to see everybody here. We have the Nathan Nation. Hang on a second. God damn it. You know the rules. And we went to all the trouble.
I didn't even look at it until you said, God.
I know. Merely Jason. Welcome, Merely Jason. You got to make sure that the name is there. You'll notice something. There's a missing head. Because normally we would have a person that goes by the name of Spoolie D. But Spoolie is not here. Instead, we have, if you're a fan of the show, this face should look familiar enough. You've seen him here, both with the friends. You've seen him in the Oops All Guest Friends episode. And now he's back returning because he's not only a fan, he is a friend. Welcome, Dan Lactose. Thank you. We had a scheduling conflict once again, and we are trying to stick to our strict adherence to the schedule. And thank you for watching the episodes last few weeks. I've seen some good feedback. But Spoolie D, unfortunately, cannot make it. But we do have recorded video from Spoolie D, both explaining his situation and his thoughts on the topics, because it can't be an episode of the OG Friends without some thoughts from Spoolie D. I did tell him to keep the videos to a strict 1 minute. He did not. But
of course not.
We're going to kick it off here with our first video. We do have apologies to make. Main apology is him not being here. Where's my puppy at? Let's see how this works. Let's hope for the best here. Spoolie D, why are you not here?
As most of you know, this show is a tightly run ship. Our captain, Mean Dave, insists on accuracy, precision, and an unwavering commitment to professionalism, especially when it comes to the calendar. Today, I'm unable to be with you all because, as you know, life can sometimes get in the way of art. However, in this case, it is art that is getting in the way of art. You see, friends, as these fine men are recording, I am on a plane headed back home from New Orleans, having just experienced Cats. That's Cats with a K and a Z. What is Cats, you may ask? I'll read from the description. Preen your whiskers and mark your calendars for a highly confusing and unanticipated musical trash fire that no one asked for. Prepare yourself to be distressingly entertained and uncomfortably horny as some of the top performers in New Orleans sing, dance, and present their sparkly feline bottoms in a retelling of one of the most absurd and brilliantly ridiculous shows of all time. Although I have failed you, dear viewer, please understand that my commitment to trolling Dave supersedes all other endeavors, artistic or otherwise. This will be the first time Dave is hearing the reason I will be missing the show, and will undoubtedly and justifiably be pissed. Unfortunately, I will not be there to see the expression on his face, and for that, I am deeply sorry.
In true Spoolie fashion, he is apologizing for not being able to see me be upset. Wasn't upset, was more upset to find out Spoolie, in fact, did not see Cats. He went to go hang out with a bunch of friends who were seeing Cats in New Orleans. So apparently it's somebody's birthday. So I'm even more upset that he lied.
Uncomfortably horny? What the fuck does that mean?
It's just a burlesque version of Cats. He has morals.
When he spelled it, I thought he was talking about going to the deli.
Going all the way to New Orleans to a deli.
I didn't know they had one in New Orleans. Yeah.
It's a burlesque version of Cats, which, I don't know.
Call it pussies if it's like
You need to consult the artist formerly known as Art Lord on these matters. So, all right. Any other apologies? There was something I wanted to... we owe an apology. Don't know who to, really, but 2 episodes ago, we had the Oops All Guest Friends, in which a statement was made that was not entirely factual, and thanks to Dan Lactose, we kind of cleared it up. It's more the fact that we don't know. Our good friend of the show, Paul Barfo, had made a statement that he kind of was exposed to a local DIY music community by way of a guy named Fernando, who claimed that he was the bass player of Plutocracy at the time that he met Paul. After the episode, I got some text from Dan informing me that not only Dan has a history with Fernando, Fernando had a pattern of compulsive lying, one of which was being the bass player of Plutocracy. Dan, you want to clear up anything of who Fernando really is?
I mean, I went to elementary school with that guy, and yeah, he's just like a pathological liar. But hey, man, I mean, I guess if you put Paul on the right path, I mean, there's something to be said for that. Yeah, funny story about that guy. Actually, the last time prior to Paul mentioning his name that I even thought of the guy, and I got a phone call from a girl I went to high school with when they were setting up our 10-year high school reunion. We're talking whatever, and then when we're wrapping it up, she says, "Oh, I just spoke to Fernando, and he told me that you guys are in a band together." And I hadn't seen this guy in, like 15 years or something like that. I didn't even know that he went to high school with me, to be totally honest. I guess that's what that dude is, just attached to Redwood City through these lies that he is maybe still spreading to this day. I'm not sure.
Sounds like it. You also then did a quick Google search for him, and we found him as a registered sex offender for multiple sex crimes.
It's weird to me to lie about something that's like so easily verifiable too. Like I could see if all of you guys were dead or something, like walking around going, "Yeah, I was the tambourine man in Plutocracy." But like, I mean, someone's going to hear it sooner or later. That's just weird.
Super weird.
So again, apologies to any Plutocracy fans out there who felt misled. Any other apologies? We got it all? All right, cool. So, moving on. In tradition of Meaningful Times with Friends, when we have a guest on our show, you're not technically a guest, you're a guest friend now. Substitute friend for Spoolie. But when we do have a guest, we like to make them feel at home, welcome, and we let them pick one of the topics and a song. And Dan's topic, albeit it's kind of strange, Spoolie couldn't have been happier. You picked a topic that's close to Spoolie's heart. Of course, he's not here, which is not a bad thing. Saves us a lot of information that we were going to have here and for me to edit a lot. Our first topic here, why is the price of hamburgers so high? Dan, why don't you kind of introduce us on this topic here?
Okay, so I was walking around with my wife in the downtown of the city I live in, and city I live in has kind of become where a lot of like young money tech people settle down and start families and stuff. Used to be like a sleepy senior citizen town, then all those people died and all the tech people moved in. So we were walking the downtown strip just looking at all the menus on the restaurants, trying to see if, we wanted to eat at any of these spots. And I looked at this new kind of like a sports bar restaurant that had just opened up that week. And I was just blown away that the hamburger prices were just insane. There was a $27 hamburger on the menu. And that's just ridiculous to me. I mean, I always felt like the hamburger on the menu was kind of like, oh, and if you don't like what we serve, we have a hamburger for you. And it was kind of like a cheap kind of kids thing, but $27 fucking dollars for a hamburger, man, that's like outrageous. I don't even eat meat, full disclosure, I'm vegetarian. So if I was to order that specific burger as an Impossible Burger, it would have been like $2 more.
Probably $4, considering the
maybe
price upgrade at this place. I mean, I knew that stuff was high, but yeah, that's pretty ridiculous, man. That's when you go and you bring a tablecloth and walk into an In-N-Out burger and you have a sit-down dinner at In-N-Out. Those prices. So that's where it came from. Let's see. Let's kick it off with Spoolie D's thoughts. He's got two parts to this, so we're going to watch the first part.
Dan wants to know why beef is so expensive. Well, one reason is everything's so expensive. But why? One reason, you can look at this chart. You can see the money supply from 2015 to 2024 has gone from $12 trillion in circulation to $21 trillion in circulation. You can see that spike started with COVID, when the government dumped a whole bunch of money into the economy because people were staying home. They wanted to incentivize hospitals to diagnose COVID, and all sorts of interesting things happened during that time. What happened after that? Many things. The Infrastructure Act, the ironically named Inflation Reduction Act, that's killing it right now. So that's one reason. Another reason is the cost of fuel. The cost of fuel has gone up dramatically, and that impacts the price to ship, truck, transport, literally everything. And that gets passed on to the consumer. But don't worry, President Biden has drained the U.S. petroleum reserves to artificially keep gas prices down. So after the election, expect a spike. You voted for it, dumb fucks.
Yes, apparently we're at fault.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. Every time we have Dan on, he comes with a fucking chart.
Good point.
I was expecting funny. That wasn't the least bit funny.
That was definitely bitter because it opened up a window into Spooley's disdain for all politicians, but namely the one currently in the White House. All right, let's go around. Why are these hamburgers so expensive?
I don't have a head on my shoulders that's really like steeped in understanding economics, but I would recommend, if you ever get a chance, there's a podcast that's called Stuff You Should Know. It's an old school podcast, been around a long time. They just kind of covered general knowledge, but they put out a really good episode earlier this year, maybe. It's called What is Greedflation? And I think that did a lot to explaining to me what we're going through right now. Like during the height of the pandemic, companies sort of claimed that all the prices need to go up because the supply chain had been broken, right? Like people weren't at work, people were sick, so that people couldn't get chickens slaughtered to get to the market and all that kind of bullshit, or in this case, beef, since that's what we're talking about. So they raised all their prices because they claimed that, you know, people weren't at work and whatnot. Well, they didn't lower the prices once people went back to work. In a very simplistic way, from what I picked up through this podcast, is that it's just straight up greed. Companies raised prices and are like, what, you think we're going to lower them now that people are back to work? Fuck you, get out of here. And that's kind of the basis of, I think, what we're going through.
Word. Jason?
I live in San Francisco, where everything's already going to be expensive, especially nowadays. Like all the rich kids moved here and kind of drove all the prices up and all the small businesses down. And small businesses used to be where you could get, you know, at least less expensive stuff. But not anymore. Now everything is shut down and it's all taking advantage of all the kids with their tech money who can afford to, you know, order everything in and not leave their apartments and everything. There's a place down the street from me where I get turkey burgers a lot because I don't eat beef either, but I do eat turkey. It used to be I could go there for like $13 and get like a little turkey burger combo thing, but now it's like $18 and it bums me out, but I still do it like once a month or so. It sucks. I don't really know the whys and wherefores, and I'm not, so I don't have a conspiracy theory. Oh, not Spoolie D, so I don't have a conspiracy theory about it. I just know that everything gets more expensive, and then it sucks.
Spoolie just brought his data when COVID hit. Yeah, the supply chain got affected, like for all food, not just anything involving transportation and all of that was going to be affected. But I also remember there were multiple news reports about the meat factories and all of that, where workers, they were getting COVID and stuff like that. So then they had to shut down the factories. They were just putting it in the news that like, hey, you want to keep eating all this animal flesh, you're going to have to pay for it, you carnivores. Turkey, still surprisingly affordable though. And then the price of gas. But then you add on top of that where Dan lives. I mean, you kind of just said the very factor that you live in an area that, yeah, used to be inhabited primarily by seniors. And yeah, everybody's dying, man. Celebrities, you know, what's with all this dying going on? Everybody's dying all of a sudden like it's a cool thing. Yeah, once that happens, and then you got new money and younger people. I remember I went out there to do a show at some dive bar in San Carlos. One of the comics described it perfectly. It looked like a dirty fish tank. It's a party bar that people hang out at, but compared to like the rest of the stuff that was around it, might have been Belmont that it was in. I forget exactly. I went around the corner to go to a CVS and I passed by a restaurant. I ran into a buddy who was eating there. He was eating outside on the patio, but you could just tell it was an expensive spot. Everything kind of looks like Burlingame out there now. And if you know Burlingame, it's a pretty pricey city to operate in. So you take all of the already prices and then you tack on an additional like $10 to $15. They know there's people there with disposable income of that, you know, magnitude. It's the price of going out, I guess. If I saw a $30 hamburger at Denny's, then I know something's afoot. If I'm on the peninsula and I can just look at a restaurant and be like, nope, not eating there. Let's go eat at some place that looks like they're just scraping it off the floor. I've eaten ground scores before, so I'm not above.
Wasn't there some sort of Twitter outrage earlier this year over McDonald's prices?
I know people were upset about In-N-Out because they raised their prices for the first time in a long time. But looking at their prices, they're still cheaper than a lot of other places, you know. I drove out to the middle of nowhere for a memorial for a friend, and my buddy that I drove was like, hey, man, I'll buy you lunch, you know, for the drive. And we went to Carl's Jr., he bought me like an Impossible Burger meal there, and I think it was like $18 for like the fries and the burger and a drink, you know? I mean, I can't even imagine spending that much money at Carl's Jr. The whole point of fast food, at least when I was younger, was, you know, you could stretch $5, you know, and fill yourself up.
I like eating at Nations. You know, we have a local few spots of those left, and Nations are always known for their giant house burgers kind of thing. You know, it was always an expensive burger. Before the pandemic, those burgers were like $5-6, and now they're like $8-9. They're like $9. It's close to $10 for the burger, which occasionally I'm still willing to pay for the size of that burger because I don't even need fries. I'll eat that burger and I'll be full. That, and a lot of times when I roll with my comedian friend Nina G, she'll always hook me up with a couple of hamburgers at McDonald's because she goes there for their cheap soda prices. And it used to just be 2 hamburgers was $2. Their hamburgers were $1 or $1.50 at the most usually. And now those 2 regular hamburgers, just the smallest ones with just, you know, ketchup, mustard, and a pickle. Those burgers now are like $2.50 each. It's over $5 for those 2 hamburgers. It's everywhere. You're not safe from the price of a burger. And you know who I really hope never watches my show is Eric Wood. Eric Wood of Bastard Noise, because we will be cut off from all direct contact from Eric Wood if he gets wind of any of this beefery going on in his fan base.
Blame it on me.
I say his fan base, not his friend circle, because I know for a fact he doesn't remember who the fuck I am whenever I see him. So, Dan, again, you brought this topic up. So was it really that astounding, the $30 burger in your area?
I mean, I guess not. You know, everything's expensive now. You know, I got a kid and her appetite is big and gets bigger, and I just see like the grocery bill going up and up. I don't know, man. We got to eat, you know, and they set the price, and Spoolie broke it down, man.
He lives for that. He lives to be right on all things. Do you have a grocery outlet in your area?
There's one in Redwood City. Yeah, I don't really go there. I don't know. I feel like I pay more at a supermarket that I only have to go to one. I know all these people that are like, oh, I go here to buy this, I go here to buy this, and I'm like, man, I can't go to 3 different stores, you know? Like, I gotta go to the one, and I'll pay, you know, I'll try to find the cheapest, but my time is also valuable.
And all the transportation, I imagine, too, also is a hassle.
Surprisingly, Grocery Outlet has a good beer selection. I would never, ever have guessed that you would go in there and find decent, like, craft beer, but somehow one of the things that I actually found there was like Altamont Brewing Company beer. I was totally taken by surprise. So if you're ever, I don't know, I'm not working for those guys, but I'm just saying, if you're a beer guy, check them out sometime, man. I was pleasantly surprised.
It won't always be there. It's an outlet. So it's like whatever is on its way, like out or reaching the point of where it's been on the shelf too long. Not like there's an expiration date, but just basically like there's always like a shelf life of what they'll leave on the shelves. And when it gets to like a point where they won't sell it in a regular store, they get all that stuff. So you get stuff that's closer to its expiration dates. So that's why it shows up there usually, or it's overflow, or you see like the rejected flavors of cereals. That's why I love going to most. You go to the cereal aisle at Grocery Outlet, depending on what month it is, you'll see like flavors and ideas that are the complete rejects. It reminds me of the scene in Alien Resurrection where there were all the attempts to like merge the human with the alien, and they have all the failed babies. That's what the cereal aisle looks like at Grocery Outlet. It's just all the failed ideas of cereal. Like, hey, we got Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Let's try it with peaches. Let's make Trix really super small and sell it that way. And there's no difference between the Trix cereal for kids, not for rabbits, but they made them super small balls. And for some reason it didn't sell. So you got a shit ton of those. You know, they add marshmallows to everything. Like, you know, here's oatmeal with marshmallows. And then, you know, shit like that. Just bad ideas. Did we cover the hamburgers there, Dan? That answer your question? All right.
Yeah.
Well, that was a quick one. That felt more like a current kind of a cultural question to see if we were all paying attention. Good job, guys. Nothing gets past the friends here. And now let's show part 2 of the Spoolie meat videos.
Do we have to?
Yeah, we do. You know, he'll be very upset if we don't. This one's in another angle. Check this out.
I know what you're thinking. Okay, Spoolie, you've proven that you're a condescending dick, but what are you doing about the problem? Well, this is what I wanted to show you. This is Spoolie D's Carnivorous Strategic Reserve. Look at all that beef, Dan. It's just got to be worth a fortune. I also have sausage and bacon and other pork stuff, turkeys, chickens, more chickens, fish, more chicken. So, I've learned from the mistakes of our government. I am not going to drain this reserve until I absolutely have to. But like the Boy Scouts say, always be prepared. And this is how I've prepared for the meat apocalypse. Thanks.
There he is, bragging.
It's a weird ass flex.
I could tell he was really pumped by this topic, man.
It kills him that he can't be here.
When you were like, "Oh no, that's a good topic," I'm like, "Really? That's okay."
Maybe I was like, we can do something with that. But then when Spoolie couldn't be here, I'm like, oh great, the one mind that I know would kill the most time with all the thoughts on meat has to be flying back from New Orleans to not see cats. All right, we covered that topic. Thank you for that, Dan. Our next topic is something that was in our list of topics. Mostly it's been in our chat. Whenever one of these movies pops up, it kind of stokes the fire on this subject. We kind of touched upon it with franchises when we, a while back, we had our bonus episode on franchises, but this is a specific type of movie. There's a new phrase coined for it, the Lega-sequel. These are legacy sequels, basically. Sequels to movies that come way after the fact of a movie that was popular in, one decade, and then usually at least 2 decades later, the studio will be like, hey, remember that movie a while back that, did okay or whatever? Well, we got no ideas. Let's make another one. These are bad examples I got for this background, but so what? For example, the most recent one, what was the most recent one?
Beetlejuice.
That's right. Beetlejuice movie that came out in 1980, what was it?
88.
And here we are in 2024 what's that, 34 years later, we have a sequel that was in development hell, I was told, because the original sequel that would have been closer to the original was going to be Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian or some shit. They were going to have him in Hawaii. But we've had a series of these, not a series, but a few of these come up recently, mostly with Eddie Murphy properties. A while back, he had Coming to America, and then more recently, Axel Foley, which is a sequel revisit to Beverly Hills Cop. When are we getting a sequel to The Golden Child? I loved that movie as a kid. So yeah, Lega-sequels. And it ain't just those. We got Cobra Kai, all kinds of revisit to the things. So,
well, first, I'm notoriously horrible movie viewer and keeping up with any kind of trends or anything, so I always go back to the original. I have no desire to check out a lot of these sequels 30 years after the original. But I will say what popped in my head when you brought up the topic, those Rob Zombie Halloween movies, which I actually really enjoyed. I think you saw that Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2000 reboot with me, and I like that too, the twist on the original story. Another one that I was actually talking about the other day was the remake of The Manchurian Candidate, but I guess those are remakes. Those aren't really sequels.
Yeah, we opened it up, whatever feels relative to your experience.
Yeah, I guess I like those, but the type of movies I like are just not being made anymore, stuff like Goodfellas, Taxi Driver, things like that. So I'm looking at the movies behind you, Dave, and I have no desire to even fall asleep watching one of those.
They're examples, but
no, I know. I didn't even know there was a Fantasia 2000 that even existed,
It's been a trend of activity that they've tried. It's a Hollywood operation or standard operating procedure of if you had a hit, no matter how old it is, and if people still kind of remember it, try to revisit it in some way, shape, or form. Godzilla's a franchise. They have multiple ones. Everybody's been really into that Godzilla -1 recently because it's actually Japanese, and the storyline ties into the original kind of point of the source material of it, being related to the World War II bomb drop and all of that. But we mentioned something in our most recent episode that Nate touched upon about nostalgia.
Yeah, I think nostalgia, and similar to our topic from our last episode where we talked about band reunions, I think it plays a huge part in, if it's not a pre-existing IP like yet another Marvel movie, it's trying to get people our age into the theaters to see more of the same shit.
And bring your kids.
Why else would you make another Indiana Jones movie when the dude's like 80 years old, right? It doesn't make any sense. Or Eddie Murphy doing another Beverly Hills Cop movie. Did any of you watch that?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was so terrible. I like, what kind of suspension of disbelief do you have to do to be like, all right, all these dudes in their 70s and 80s are fucking still on the police force somehow? Like, who is that for? I idolized Eddie Murphy when I was a little kid. Like, I loved Eddie Murphy. His movies, I mean, his stand-up now is rough when you go back and watch it. But I love the guy. And I'm like, he seems to have shifted like into some bullshit like a long time ago when he got to like the Clumps phase of his career. Like, he got into some hokey ass phase of his career doing all these family movies. But man, that Beverly Hills Cop movie was something else. I think I made it through about half of that shit before I just couldn't do it. I don't get why they're making that stuff. What else? Like, I think of Star Wars. Like, what do you have to do to get me to hate Star Wars? Like, keep making them is the answer because they're fucking terrible. Trying to think of what other things. Like, okay, this one's on me. The original Matrix sequels were fucking terrible. Like, the first movie was great. The other two they made were horrible. So when they made another Matrix movie about 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, oh boy, I'm in. And I should have just known that it was going to be like so lame. Some of this is like, I get into the nostalgia trap, or even I get caught up in it. And I'm always like, man, why did I think that was going to be good? I knew it was going to be complete garbage, which is why that Beetlejuice one was kind of refreshing, because that was one of the few ones I've seen in the past few years that was actually pretty good. Like, I walked away from that being like, kind of don't mind that I spent $15 to go see that. Wasn't bad at all. And, you know, it did kind of tickle that nostalgia thing, but maybe it's Catherine O'Hara. I feel like she's good no matter what you put her in, or something. You know, it could be the cast. I don't know. I've
seen it twice now. I actually enjoyed it both times. And I think part of why that worked was it was somewhat more inspired in Tim Burton's kind of vibe, because, you know, he's been doing a whole run of movies that were completely just for commercial cash-ins, and they were pretty obvious. As usual, he put his current girlfriend in the movie. I'm surprised no one even pointed out that Monica Bellucci and Beetlejuice highly resembles the love interest from A Nightmare Before Christmas. Felt like a fun revisit to the Tim Burton of before. And they did some inspired sequences that they weren't able to do in the original Beetlejuice. I guess the whole Italian black and white part of the movie where they visit Italian classic horror, that was something that they were trying to do in the original Beetlejuice, but they couldn't. Mark Bernardin on the Fat Man Beyond podcast, which I watch, he pointed out that Tim Burton's gotten a lot of criticism for not having a lot of people of color in his movies, and he wasn't really too thrilled seeing the Soul Train. He just wedged in this whole concept that wasn't in the original movie, where there's a train of souls, and they're all dancing to classic, 70s dance tunes and shit, and the majority of them are black. I didn't get too up in arms over that. My only gripe, I'm like, Lydia still would dress the same as she did when she was a 13-year-old girl, but then I look at me and I'm like, yeah, I still dress the same as 13-year-old me, so who knows. Jason?
Well, I traditionally am not a big fan of Lega-sequels or reboots for the most part. As I get older, I'm stuck on like lately I've been watching a lot of My Favorite Martian, and like movies from the 20s, 30s, 40s and 50s. I've been watching nothing but old shit lately, like old soap operas like from the 70s and 60s. Like I've been watching that kind of crap. I don't know what's wrong with me. I listen to a lot of old radio shows, like old time radio shows. So like any of this new stuff that comes out, like I tend to not really see it very often, or like my desire to watch anything new is really, really, really low. So the Lega-sequels don't really hit me because I'm too busy watching the original old shit to get around to the new stuff. I feel like, people are like, oh, this new neo-Western is so amazing. And I'm like, well, I don't know. There's like all these old Westerns that I haven't seen yet. Why would I watch this new shit, I don't know. I've got problems, like mental problems, apparently. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but like if it's not black and white, like I'm much less likely to watch it these days. Like give me original Perry Mason. I don't need to see that new Perry Mason. Oddly enough, the thing that I don't understand is how people are hating the new Indiana Jones stuff and the new Star Wars stuff. Because to me, it's all fine Indiana Jones and it's all fine Star Wars. It's like nothing has changed. It's like if you go back and watch the original stuff, it's exactly like that. The original run of Indiana Jones movies are just like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, just like the Dial of Destiny. They seemed like perfectly acceptable Indiana Jones movies to me. I don't understand why people hated them. And the same with the new Star Wars stuff. I used to be a big Star Wars fan, and then I started to hate Star Wars because of, well, Mario and his obsession with Star Wars and the extended universe and all that shit. I just kind of reflexively began to hate it. But then when he got really sick, like I would take him to go see the new Star Wars movies because he was like stuck in hospice and they thought he was going to die. So I would take him to these movies that I didn't want to see. And it turns out I thought they were just fine. I didn't really think they were terrible at all. So I don't understand. My taste does not match up with popular taste at all. I feel like my opinion is like totally not valid because, like I said, I'm stuck on radio shows. Like last night I fell asleep listening to fucking Jack Benny. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Wow.
You really should check yourself into a hospital with all this appreciation for history. It is a serious mental issue. You just sound like a movie hipster. That's not a bad thing. None of this new crap. Dan enjoys old records, and you do too. There's so much stuff that's out there that it's just as worthwhile digging into the past to find stuff to appreciate than a lot of today's kind of just churned out shit that really is just comes out like high priced beef. You know, it's just not worth it. I enjoy all movies. I've been seeing some cool movies lately. They aren't Lega-sequels per se, but there's a movie I'll recommend to you, Dan, called Strange Darlings. As soon as I saw the opening narration that very much echoed Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, like I can already catch a vibe here. And it was a low-budget independent movie that was truly made independently. It reminded me of a movie that, of all people, Kevin Smith made, probably one of his best movies, called Red State. Lega-sequels, it depends on the sequel. I don't know where Nate's Clockwork Orange torture of watching Axel Foley came from. I watched it. I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, plus it's on Netflix. It's like you're not having to watch it in a theater. You can easily, decide like, oh, this sucks.
Didn't it feel like an entire movie that was based on fan service? The entire premise of the film was, remember this guy? Like, why make a film doing that alone? That was like
for money,
offensively whack.
But for money, you saw the Coming to America, right?
I skipped that one.
Oh, you skipped that one.
Oh, okay. But I think Jason of all people did see it.
I actually saw that too.
And it wasn't that bad.
It was all right.
Yeah,
it was entertaining. I wouldn't watch it again.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. I was more annoyed at seeing a comedian that I did a show with years ago in the movie playing Eddie Murphy's son, Jermaine Fowler. No hate on his success. Happy for him, but he's one of these guys that he appears in a lot of different random movies. Now, he's in a new movie that's coming out called, it's something to do with spiders, Sting. He's in a new movie that's coming out called Sting. Yeah, exactly. You haven't heard about it. That's his kind of his brand. He's in movies that you barely heard about, and these Lega-sequels. He played the son, and I thought he did a good job, even though as soon as I saw him, I'm like, I don't want to watch this, but I watched it, and he's not a bad actor. It's just when you get to know somebody, I didn't really get to know him, but when I met him, I said, oh yeah, I saw your special on Showtime, and he kind of looked up from his phone, he goes, oh, thank you very much, thank you, and I'm like, I didn't say I finished it or that I enjoyed it. I just said I saw it. It was just kind of funny. It's classic Hollywood classic contemporary Hollywood of just trying to find whatever they can make money at. And nostalgia, as Nate pointed out, it's a roll of the dice in trying to see like, hey, let's see if we can put butts in seats for a revisit to this. And they don't have to make it that good to get people there. People go see Venom and Venom 2, for fuck's sake. And those movies suck. And yet that's got a third one coming out. So, all right. Have we talked ourselves into a hole on this? All right. Any more thoughts, Jason? What the fuck is that? That's your knife. Oh, look at this, man.
Knives are out, baby.
I got a knife too now. Look at this. My nephew got this for me. Boom shakalaka.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I approve.
Let's see. I got a church key.
All right, on. Hey, that'll work.
You can stab somebody with that.
I've got a knife.
Or open their can.
Open a can of whoop ass.
A can of whoop ass. Oh yeah, we got to get Spoolie's thoughts on the Lega-sequel.
Dave wanted to talk about legacy sequels. Not a movie guy. I don't have much to say on the topic. I will say a couple things. The kind of reboot of Star Wars always felt kind of weird, and like one of Dave's favorite things, like trying too hard. I don't know, it just never worked. There was one, I can't remember which one, that the Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker guy did the classic, like, horrible movie, no! So it has that going for it, but other than that, it's been kind of a bust and kind of annoying. Rogue One was alright. That was interesting to get the backstory. I like the Cobra Kai series, because one of the things that I think we all, like, didn't realize as a kid is, like, what a dick the Daniel character was. And in this flipping the script around to make him, less of a protagonist and make Johnny the protagonist was really creative and good. And then the only thing I'd say about this is, if you've not seen the Coming to America sequel, I would say the best part, other than James Earl Jones, who's the best part of literally everything in movies, is Wesley Snipes. His performance is other level.
Yes, Wesley Snipes. He appeared in that, and also Eddie Murphy's one original movie that's also really good, the I Am Dolomite or whatever. If there's anything good about it, it's that it's given Wesley work. And we got to revisit The Blade recently. If you haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine, sorry for spoiling it for you, but he's one of the big cameos in the movie.
Pay your taxes, Wesley Snipes.
I think you learned. Well, I hope you did. So that was that. And yeah, Cobra Kai was another one that's probably one of the better ones that they've done. That's kind of, it's not so much a sequel but a series, but it's a Lega series based on the Karate Kids. But they've been trying to make Karate Kids and reboot it and all that kind of shit, and this was like the first one that did it because it was inspired, and something's inspired. I don't mind it so much, but it's pretty obvious when it isn't. So we got that, and yes, now going into the can of whoop ass. Dan selected our song this week. The funny thing was, when I was communicating with Dan, I just picked up a CD from this artist. The song that I was suggesting is a known one from a movie that I'm sure you've all have seen, King of New York. Dan was on the same wavelength, just a different path. He said, that's funny because I had a different song in mind from the same artist. When I checked out the song, I was like, oh yes, that's definitely a good choice. It is Schoolie D, a rapper from Philadelphia, innovator, a godfather of the hip-hop genre. Schoolie D's No More Rock and Roll.
Schoolie D, man. No more rock and roll. Got my 12-inch right here. It's actually not one of my favorite Schoolie D songs, to be completely honest. And it's kind of a weird song because it starts off not about the subject of the song title, It's kind of starts off and it's just one of my favorite topics of a rap song is just rapping about rapping. And he just does kind of like a standard 16-bar Schoolie D verse. Obviously, the chorus is the big part of the song. But then, like, the actual part where he talks shit on rock and roll is, like, just a really quick 8-bar verse that maybe, like, 4 bars are really, like, throwing shade on rock. And then it's the chorus again, and then it's out. And it's really quick song. It's weird.
It did seem like a departure from the Schoolie D that I'm more familiar with. Yeah, there's the full album.
So this is the album it's on, and, when I look at the songs on this, like, I mean, there's so many more songs I like better, Smoke Some Kill, Mr. Big Dick. Fat Gold Chain is really signifying.
Mr. Big Dick, that's a classic.
Yeah, you just glazed over that one, Dan.
I think that was a 12-inch too, actually. But yeah, this one, and then it's got that crazy video, man, with all.
Better not be a 7-inch EP. It better be a 12-inch. Got to make that joke. Thoughts on the song, there, guys?
I've heard Schoolie D before. I had not heard this song before, and I was immediately struck by how corny it was because I was watching the video, how corny the lyrics were and everything. It just seemed really like tame and kind of like, I don't know, just kind of weak. And I wasn't sure like why you would have chosen it. And then I realized this has got to be like the clean version or something, right? Because like there's clearly parts where he's eliding over words, so I'm like, okay, so there's got to be some curse words in here somewhere. And then I went back and listened to the original, and it was like, I said it was 90% less cornball. Like, 'cause it like had all the curse words and it had all the drug references and all that shit that was not in the video version. And I have to say, the video itself, it's kind of funny. There was a very brief moment in time where it was cool to wear like full spandex outfits, like, for guys to wear like spandex head to toe. It looks really silly nowadays. I mean, I didn't mind it at the time, and I certainly don't mind it now. I'll check out a guy wearing very form-fitting clothes, sure. But it just kind of makes them look really, really skinny and like kind of weak, to be wearing these spandex outfits. And like where you can see just like they definitely skipped leg day, like they're just like little twig legs running around and trying to be tough. It's kind of laughable. However, all that being said, listening to the album version, all the fucks and all the foul language and whatever, it made a lot more sense and it seemed kind of all right. Although, I think it's kind of funny that he called out Cinderella of all bands to like call out the beginning of the song. I thought Cinderella was really funny. Also, it just felt really weird. Like now that I think about it, the reason I looked up the album version is because in the video, that second verse, it seems like the song just kind of like, he just kind of like ran out of stuff to say or something and just kind of like stopped, like Schoolie D on the microphone. And then like, it felt like there was supposed to be something else there. And so that's why I looked it up, because I was like, is there something that got chopped out or something? But no, it's just, that's the way he wrote it. Okay. Very weird song.
I'd never heard of Schoolie D until we covered this song. And so when you first sent us the link to the video, I sort of initially thought it might be like a kid's thing. Like based on how silly the video was and like the simplicity of the lyrics in the video version, it looked like something that would have been made for like Nickelodeon at the time. Like the dudes in the silly like wigs and all that and the wrestling. So I checked out the album version and I was like, oh, okay. Like when he came out and said, fuck Cinderella, fuck Bon Jovi and motherfuck Prince, I was like, oh, okay, I got this all wrong. Because like even the name Schoolie D to me sounds like it could have been like an after school special, like Schoolie D says, do your homework, yo, or you know what I like, it just had like this like weird connotation to it. So I was kind of surprised. I had the same sort of observation that Dan did at how like this song had no philosophy behind it. Like if this was a Public Enemy song and called No More Rock and Roll, Chuck D would for sure have some shit to say about rock and roll. And this song seemingly had zero to say about why fuck rock and roll. Like that question wasn't answered in this song, which I thought was fucking hilarious. The first verse he talked about having a gun and his gold chain and he's got hot chicks in his ride. And then I think in the second verse it was something like rock and rollers were taken over. That might have been the one line that pertained to like fuck rock and roll, but that was kind of it. My wife pointed out how much the background music sounded like it could have been a Prince song. For him coming out and saying motherfuck Prince, it kind of had like a Prince funky jam going on in the background. So that was kind of funny. I had fun watching this video. I love silly old shit like this. It's great. It's like fun to revisit videos from this era.
If you were to listen to the Schoolie D that like Dan showed me, you'd be like, oh, I didn't know where this sample came from that I know from this other song. It's been sampled a lot, similar to Kool Keith. And he came out long before other rappers that are more well known, and they all cite him. Like
Ice-T
and Eazy-E both like wrote songs that are almost direct ripoffs. It is Schoolie D's style that they're biting, and then they just write lyrics to it. Because he has a song, Looking at My Gucci, it's about that time. If you've heard any hip-hop, that's like a pretty well-known line. The other reference that I knew Schoolie D from was King of New York, Am I Black Enough for You? The songs that I got from Dan on this hip-hop cassette he gave me were old school 808 style beats. And then I'm listening to it and I'm like, why does this sound familiar? And it's because, Boys in the Hood by Eazy-E is pretty much a direct ripoff. And same with, what's the Ice-T song?
6 in the morning.
6 in the morning. But Schoolie D actually comes from Philadelphia. Everybody thinks he's from New York because of King of New York. Anybody that doesn't know where he's from, but he's from Philly. And the funny thing with this song, when I saw the video, I'm like, this is the first thing that kind of made sense as to Schoolie D being from Philadelphia and DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince are from Philadelphia. Because the clean version, the video version, sounded like Schoolie D doing a Fresh Prince impression. And it felt like it even with the video. The whole budget and style of the video is very Fresh Prince-esque with the wrestlers. I thought the coolest thing was that this video, it clearly gave some opportunity to some people that are involved in a wrestling school, because there's no familiar wrestlers. They're all a bunch of people that look like they can wrestle. They got some backyard wrestling ring, and they kind of know what they're doing, but don't, which indicates probably from a wrestling school, probably something local. ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling, that was one of their hometowns, was Philadelphia, like a few years later. But so the song came out in 88, and that was at the height of your glam rock, glam metal era. It kind of seemed like Schoolie D was kind of like a Legacy sequel approach to writing a song to kind of create some stem of relevance in the culture by taking random beef aim at rock and roll in general. It's like, it's not sincere. It's just like, yeah, fuck all this rock and roll. So, and it's kind of like how Eminem on the Marshall Mathers LP, he took random stabs at Moby, and Moby did nothing to him. Moby has more to do with classic hip hop than Eminem did. I just learned that from a recent documentary that I was referring to Dan, The Streets Are Silent or something. It's the story of hip hop and skateboarding in New York. And I had no idea that Moby's history kind of started there. He was a DJ at Club Mars or whatever. Back in the day, is when he had hair. He actually had long hair. They called him DJ Jesus or some shit. It's weird seeing Moby and shit like this because, yeah, he's there in early hip hop, and then he also like played bass at a couple gigs for Flipper, even though they claim he never did. But
he had a punk band too.
Yeah,
like a 7-inch, I think.
Yeah, he's been around in all these early genres, and yet is fairly genreless in his own music. So Schoolie D was like one of the guys that was in Philadelphia but didn't exactly blow up, but this song seems like it was trying to ride the whatever wave of Fresh Prince. It's weird. He's gangster rap, even though they didn't have gangster rap term of it yet. It had gangster vibes and bragging about what you have with whatever street wealth that you have. But the cool thing about him, I always thought he was cool. Like, something about him, like he's kind of there with Kool Keith in a certain sense, that he was kind of like doing his own thing, never trying too hard to like try to be a part of the thing. That's why this song kind of was a departure, because it felt like he was trying to make something to break into more mainstream success, and thought he could do so by fuck all this rock and roll shit that's popular right now, and just took aim at it, and then made a ridiculously funny video wrestling a bunch of imitation wrestlers or something. And it looked, I don't know if that's really him doing drop kicks and shit. He might have really trained, because he might have really trained as a wrestler, because he is pretty fit.
I think it was him. It looked like it was him that was doing it all.
So Insane Clown Posse are trained wrestlers. They're from Detroit, but very possible Schoolie D was going to a wrestling school.
He looked like a pretty fit guy in the photos, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Something I wanted to add was, it's a couple years later, but the song might have just gotten bigger and bigger over time. But I wonder if also this is a bit of a response to Walk This Way, you know, Run DMC and Aerosmith, and just that becoming like a huge thing. I didn't really look into that, but I'm wondering if, you know, it's like if he's throwing shots at like Rick Rubin
Yeah.
That kind of whole sound, you know.
Is he still around? Is he still doing music?
He's still around. I think he was like involved with Cartoon Network, like Adult Swim stuff. I'm pretty sure he was involved in something like that. My memory of seeing him recently was like had to do with Adult Swim or something.
I wouldn't be surprised. It sounds like Adult Swim. The irony being that if he made some animated thing, and Nate said he sounded like a kid.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he self-produced and self-released his first 2 records. He's just like such a legend. Kind of, Ice-T says he's the godfather of gangster rap, but then also like to be DIY, he drew that cover, like DIY punk rock vibe to like his whole thing. I mean, I could just imagine him in the 80s probably selling records out of his car, you know, or on some stoop in Philly. And I think he's overlooked too in hip hop history, like his importance and just how like you see him, like Dave saying, like his rhyme cadence, like popping up in other people's songs, and that stripped down 808 with all the crazy reverb going on. You know, he did that before other people were doing that.
It's funny. So I looked it up, and correct, he did the music and occasional narration for Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Okay, that was
the theme song.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have heard that. So
yeah, and he worked on Space Ghost Coast to Coast, or he was a guest on an episode, and created the song Sharky and Knights for the series 12-Ounce Mouse. And he was a character on the Rudy and Go-Go world famous cartoon show. Got sued for some shit over the theme music. He released an album in 2022, so he is still making music, because Schoolie D is crazy. There you go.
Like Kool Keith, man, you know, these guys keep going. It's inspiring, man.
Yeah, he's a musical guy. He's still alive, and these are lifers, I guess. And if there's anything that's cool about him, it's like, you know, he doesn't voice a lot of disdain for the fact that, you know, these other guys blew up kind of on the back of his work. And, you know, he's working. So I don't know. I don't see a lot of videos of like Schoolie D being like, "Man, these rappers are trash." You know,
He's too busy working.
Yeah. And Cool Keith does that, so I leave it to him to shit on all the current stuff. Wow. But yeah, all right. Any more thoughts on No More Rock and Roll? Do you think it was effective in curbing people from rock and roll? Anybody? I don't think it was.
I would say that hip hop's place in pop culture now, like being sort of at the pinnacle of what is pop culture for a long time, maybe he got the job done, and his song was low key, but we didn't know. Might
have turned the tide. Yes, it was the little snowball that then the avalanche came in the '90s. Who knows? I know Abel Ferrara loves him, hence his work with him on King of New York. He did all the music for that. So we got one more thing. We need our thoughts from Spoolie D, who originally went by Ramshackle Dan. You know, we come up with the names organically here, as recently named merely Jason when we were discussing the future of the Art Lord. Jason stated, "I am merely Jason," and thus a name was born. You know, Nathan Nation. We was, you know, just Nathan, and then Nathan of Newark.
I was briefly No Poetics.
No Poetics, Nathan.
Based on a chat typo. So there you
typo,
go.
Yes. He said Poetics, and I'm like, you'll be No Poetics, Nathan. And that was a couple episodes. But when he referred to the Nathan Nation, which when Nathan's on, he does bring some viewership from his world. That's when I was like, oh yes, the Nathan Nation definitely will work here. So Ramshackle Dan, the name originated from a meme that I sent to the group that I thought was funny, and it was a meme that says "fuck shed." It was semi-viral or whatever, and Ramshackle Dan did not find it funny at all. Basically, we had a debate over the humor of the meme, and as always, we have our back and forths over it. So he chose the name Ramshackle Dan because the word "shack's" in it, and then Spoolie D came from a typo in our chat because Ramshackle Dan, in a life before this, has a website called notspooky.com. And Jason, you might know the origin of Not Spooky more than I do. What is that?
Oh, it's kind of like the Vice magazine do's and don'ts, but for spooky or not spooky. He judges, this is spooky, this is not spooky, and he just posts photographs and says, not spooky or spooky.
Is it specifically related to Halloween? Like,
no, it's just anything trying to be spooky, he decides whether or not it is actually spooky.
He still owns it today, notspooky.com. This is a website he's had for, like, I think going on 20 years. And you can look it up, notspooky.com, and find out what is spooky and not spooky, according to Spoolie D. And so when he was typing, he said something was not spoolie as a typo for spooky. And I always liked the name Schoolie D, so I said Spoolie D is your new name. Once again, we're ripping off of Schoolie D, all right? This guy,
who is it?
All of his unknowingness, he is completely relevant to all things. So let's get Spoolie's take on the song here.
Schoolie D video is great. I like that Run DMC era style of rap. And I also like the wrestling theme, kind of pitting the hero against the heel in this case I also hate, which is dudes wearing makeup to distract from the fact that their music is shitty to mediocre. And I don't know how that lasted so long, and I still don't know why people like Kiss. But they're not the only culprits, they're the main culprits. But any theme of a video that turns into beating the shit out of dudes wearing makeup is awesome. Also, you can look at it another way where it just kind of devolves into a race riot, and it's just like MAGA's vision of Kamala's America coming to fruition in this video, which is also hilarious. So, anyways, good video.
And don't you love how the quality of his videos look more and more like he's kidnapped?
I couldn't make out half of what the fuck he was talking about there.
That was the one that looked like it went through the Vader filter with that recording. I had to bump up the volume on that. Were you guys able to see it or hear it?
He had positive sentiments, basically. He thought it was good and funny.
No, you understood it.
It was garbled, but
yeah.
That was the quality of the audio. He asked if I wanted to do it again. I said, no, I want it to sound shitty, so to reflect poorly on you. So, all right. Well, that is it, everybody. Meaningful Times with Friends, episode 31. Want to thank everybody. Kind of an honor discussion. I mean, we talking about the price of beef, a revisit of movies where we restated some things we've stated about movies before. But hey, redundancy, we're not above it. We will repeat ourselves. And yes, Schoolie D, Dan, following in Meaningful Times brand, I guess we'd call it, of picking one of his least favorite Schoolie D songs for us to watch. It's like, I really like Schoolie D, but let's check out this one I don't like. So, but thank you. Thanks, Dan, for being a part of this. Once again, thanks for joining us and for always your feedback on the show. Nathan Nation, thank you. Once again, bringing the nation. Merely Jason, thank you for merely being here. All right, just thank you. That's been the show. Keep coming back. Same meaningful time, same meaningful thing. Go to Chibson.com, get yourself a tone mug. Also, we got yeah, there we go. Got Chib products right here. Priority delay pedal is back in play. You can order one now. It's a delay pedal. Pre-orders are available. They ship December 1st, 2024. So get yourself some delay.
I'm tempted to get one of those.
Chibson.com, all things. And welcome also, we saw it on the previous episode, Juan Mayor, the new addition to the Chibson family, Chibson signature artist Juan Mayor, who has taken his music back from the thief that is John Mayer. So, tired of this appropriation going on from the music scene. But yeah, all right. Thanks again, everybody. See you next time.